Welcome to the last round of the Rapid Tournament in Italy. Now we are playing one amateur player who is rated around 1900. He's been a little bit late in the game, and I started with the first move e4. He responded with the move d6. This is marking the Philidor or Pierce defense. I grabbed the center, he responded knight f6, I played knight c3, and now he pushed d5. After knight f3, he's picking standardly to go for the most popular move here, and that's knight from b to d7. And now I'm picking the variation rook g1. This become my special variation that I'm playing on all formats, even standard. And I think this move is really nice because it already creates the threat of grabbing some space on the king side, and it also makes this knight a little bit questionable later. We know that this knight is usually important for black because he attacks the e4 pawn. So my opponent went bishop e7. Now instead of going g4 immediately, I started with bishop e3. I should go firstly g4 and then bishop e3, because if I go bishop e3, now there is option for him to go knight g4, and he missed that. Now I need to come back with my knight, and it's a little bit annoying. So I just should change the move order. I start after c6, now I went g4, and you see, the whole point is to, if he goes h6, of course, to go h4 and g5, but the whole point is to actually kick this knight out of the way from f6, so we are safe about this pawn, and also usually knight will be bad on h5. Doesn't matter that we are creating the weakness on f4, it's very hard for them to get in touch with f4 square. So he surprised me by taking on d4. You see that my advantage is just going up. This actually loses the control over the center. I just simply retook with my knight, and I later have the option of jumping on f5 and then controlling the d6, also is targeting the bishop, the pawn, and now these pawns make sense. My next plan is to go queen d2 and long sit castles. He went knight c5. The point is to target on e4, but all of that is pretty much not working properly because I have two options of defending this pawn. I can go f3 and I can go queen f3. I picked the most natural option, and that's to push just the pawn because I want my queen to stay on d2, to be aligned on the d line with the rook. He went h6, stopping the g5 for a moment. But, you know, that's not a big problem because later I will push h4. I started with queen d2 first, and I'm slowly preparing alongside castles. My opponent went for queen c7, which is a little mistake. There is no big deal why is this like a mistake, is this blundering something or not, but it's just a bad square for the queen. You will see later why is that a case. I just went alongside castles. It's a very natural move. He went immediately for b5, and now this is a blunder. You can pause the video and try to find what's the best move here for white. And it is knight takes c6. It's a brilliancy here. Why? It's because if they take it back, there is bishop takes b5, and you see that my opponent just figure out that he just blundered the pawns. He might lose the queen this way, so after knight takes c6, I'm also threatening to, you know, just simply take the bishop, then take the pawn, and he's kind of collapsing. Also, I will take the knight. I will just trade everything because I'm winning so many pawns by the end of the day. He pushed b4, trying to get something as a counterplay, but the point is I will not take the e7 bishop because he has this intermezzo move. I'll just simply take the pawn back on b4, and now look at these knights. They will perfectly get established on the d5, and now white is just much better. He tried to activate something with rook b8. The point is he would like to later maybe attack my b2 pawn and give me some checkmate, but none of these things are just working. My king is super safe. The pretty much easy way to defend the king is later just to push b3. I will not have the problems with the dark square bishop. He is too slow of getting into the game, and especially after I put my knight on d5, I will take this bishop on e7 for sure. So at this point I'm deciding to place my knight from c to d5 because it's targeting the queen. It's also targeting the other pieces. He decided to take, and then I just pretty much take with the other knight. So with this I'm targeting and making a fork to my opponent's pieces. Now black is thinking where to put a queen, but it's pretty much very logical that queen goes on b7 with a counterplay on the pawn on b2, but as I mentioned, b3 is a defense. There is no bishop a3, there is no bishop f6. I don't have any problem around the king, even though dark squares are open for now. If I need any defense, my bishop can pretty much slide and back help the king for safety. He played bishop e6, targeting my knight on d5. Now when you're better, you're looking for simplification, so you don't really want to complicate your position more. Since my king is also open, I'm 2 pawns up, but I also want to just as quickly as possible simplify. That's I just simply want to take the knight on c5. He takes back on c5 with a pawn, and now the thing is here, I can take on e7, no doubts about that. This bishop is hanging for sure, but I found very interesting move, bishop b5 check, where I'm simply not allowing their king to make a castle. Why? If queen takes b5, there is knight c7 tactic, and my opponent is simply losing a queen now. So on bishop b5 check, if he goes on d8, then some discoveries happens for sure. Bishop d7 doesn't make sense to retreat the bishop, so the most logical move is of course king f8 to slide away, and now I simply take the bishop on e7, trade the pieces. He can take on b5 now, of course, that looks logical, but at that point I will just bring my knight back. He decided to take on e7 with a queen, and now there is some counterplay. He wants to go c4 and then maybe to put a queen to the game. Also my bishop is hanging, so his intentions is very clear. I think I don't have time for the move like queen d6, because then simply rook takes b5 will happen, and I don't have time to create a counterplay and win my pieces back. Instead, I simply went for c4. It's opening up my king, but my king is very safe. Like this fortress of pawns plus my bishop here, and king being on the dark square against the light square bishop is totally safe position. He decided to find better way for the king to make safety and also to connect the rooks. I went queen d6, simply offering the queen trade, because when you're better and when you have at least simple material advantage like opponents, it's enough to simplify. Don't forget also to activate your other pieces and actually show where is your advantage. He doesn't want to trade a queen, so he put a queen on b7. To be honest, fair enough, like trading the queen is bad for him, just because he's 2 pawns down. Since his rook is only protected by queen, I can safely go with the move f4. I'm not worrying about a pawn on e4, because the rook on d8 is hanging. That's a safe zone, and now I'm starting my pawn progress on the king side, actually to punish this king and inactivity of this rook in the corner. He played king to h7, trying to connect the rooks. And now just easy move f5, targeting their light square bishop. He played rook bd8. If I take now, they'll take back, I'll take here, and I'm just risking with no reason. So like I'm still having the advantage, but you see that the advantage a little bit drops. So instead of going there, I decide to go queen e5. I should maybe capture the pawn on c5, but I liked more queen e5 because it's also connected with a pawn on g7. So now this bishop is under the attack, and my opponent pretty much has only one move to save this bishop, is to go on c8. And it's really important for me that there is no rook e8, because this bishop is a little bit odd here on b5 in front of the pawn actually, but it's actually a good piece. It's good enough that controls these squares and doesn't allow my opponent certain activity. I push g5 because I would like to go g6, and I also want to take on h6 and open up the g line here, go for the checkmate. That's my clear intention with this move. I saw one line here that goes rook takes d1 like he did first, and now if I take with rook, I'm gonna simply lose the pawn on g5. That's what I saw, but taking with rook is actually better. Instead, in the game I took with a king, just because I want to maintain the pressure on the king side. My next move is this or this. He included the check on d8 to attack my king. Now I have many options, of course, where to place the king, but The really best one and only square for the king is to stay on the square which is opposite color than their bishop, and also opposite color than this pawn here, and not getting in touch. So if I go here, here, and here, any sort of counterplay could result into the entrance for this queen with tempi, and I don't want to allow that. That's why I went king c1. So for him is now the best to take on g5, and if I take here, then he has this move f6, and after rook h5, king to g8. Now I need to go back on f4 because I need to stay with my pawn, and here like my rook is a little bit odd, so it actually becomes equality now because he has very decent counterplay on the d line. Like my rook should stand back. That's something I missed. Of course, on h takes g5, maybe I would see better move, which is actually f6. I would definitely try to consider that during the game. So we are here. He's low on time, as you see. So he pushed h5. He ignored the pawn on g5. So I don't know, for some reason he got scared. Of course, now I go g6 here, open up the king completely. I mean, he has to take this guy, because if he doesn't take, I take on f7 and then on g7. So he takes here, I take back with pawn, which coming with check. Now the only square for him is to go pretty much on g8, where the king is kinda stuck and isolated on the last rank. So the idea is such a queen h5, queen h7, and just, you know, simply later collecting this pawn with, you know, making the king towards the center is looking like game over. But I still need to be precise with my moves because I don't want to allow him any counterplay. I took on h5 with my queen. I have a threat queen h5, king f8, queen h8, king e7, queen take g7. That's one threat. Or I can go firstly rook f1 with an immediate threat of queen h7. Depends what he plays. But he plays queen takes e4, and now I can't go rook f1 because he has some perpetual checks. So that's why I started with queen h7 check. Okay, his only move is king f8. For some reason he's burning seconds on this only move. At this point here, I can start with rook f1. I can also go with a queen h8. Of course, it's better to include the rook here because both moves will transpose into the same stuff. Like my queen will anyway take on g7, so I don't really need to go with the queen h8. I started with rook f1 check. The only square for the king is to go on e7, but the thing is there is a bishop f5 covering. And now I go queen h8. I wanted to provoke this bishop out. King e7. Now we simply take this pawn on g7 with check. King is in trouble. Where to go? Will he go here or here? That's two only squares. And now he picked to go on d6. He is 7 seconds only. And now I just need to make the final move that will confuse him completely. I can go rook d1 and I can go queen f6. Those two moves are winning. Anything else is losing. I also need to be careful about a c2 checkmate. And that's the only counterplay for now my opponent has. So I cannot really look forward to win the rook on d8 with some rook d1. Let's say king e6 and now rook takes d8, because there is queen takes e2. Of course, this is not possible. So here after king d6, I'm just calculating a little bit what's the best continuation for me. Do I see something better? But there is simple queen f6, king moves somewhere, and then just queen takes f5. If I played queen f6, it's almost double attack. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and he flagged. He moved on c7. I won on time, but I'm anyway absolutely winning. And now he's explaining to me rook d1 was better. But okay, everything is, I saw both moves are fine completely. So this game, very well played in Philidor, rook g1. I really recommend this line. It's a very fantastic line, especially if you want to catch your opponent off guard. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.